July 9th. This is the time and place for the July meeting of the Boise Public Library Board of Trustees. I would ask Carrie for a roll call.
Johnson. Here. Mom.
Here.
Plenty.
Here.
Pantera. Neffy.
Here.
4 board members present. Pantera asked.
Will be joining us in just a few moments. She's running a little bit behind from a prior engagement. So welcome everybody. I want to especially welcome Evelyn Johnson, our newest board member to the Board of Trustees. Thank you so much for joining us. And why don't you tell us a little bit about your background? I know most of us know a little bit about you, but a little bit about your background and why you chose to put your name in the hat for me.
Thank you for it's a privilege to serve. I have lived in Boise for about 18 years now, and for most of my adult working life have been involved in literacy in one way or the other, whether it's as a special ed teacher or professor, and then as the CEO of the Lee Pesky Learning Center, which I know the library works with very closely because I did when I was there. And so, a few years ago, I made a career change and I now work in the ed tech space. And the thing that I really missed about all of my previous work was this community involvement connection. And so when the library board position came up, it just seemed like such a natural fit for me in a way that I could get re-involved in community service.
Thrilled to have you. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you. Board member. The next item on the agenda is communications. And do we have any other communications? Okay. That takes us to the minutes. Minutes of the June board meeting. Does everybody get a chance to look them through? Are there any changes or additions or corrections to it?
Review the minutes and move that we approve them as written.
Second. Those in favor? We have a roll call. Yes. Gary. Pardon?
Well, Johnson wasn't here, so I just say Johnson.
Yeah, and you can abstain if you'd like, since it's the review of the last.
Oh, sure, I'll abstain. I mean, I read through them, but since I wasn't here, yeah, sure, I'll abstain.
Come on.
Yes.
Plenty.
Yes.
Neffy.
Yes. Okay, next up is the consent agenda. As a review, all matters on the consent agenda are considered routine and may be approved in a single motion. A trustee may ask that an item be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately. Is there anything that anyone would like to remove from the consent agenda? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second,
Second.
call.
Yes.
Come on. Yes. Plenty.
Yes.
Neffy.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
Okay. So 3 things. Next up are our reports, and I see we have Kirsten from the Friends of Boise Public Library. Kirsten, can you hear us? Can you see us all right?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes. Yes. And what I have to report is that we've closed the library in the main library, the bookstore, sorry, in the main library. And we'll be reopening in our space on Fulton, July 14th, assuming everything goes the way we hope it will.
Very good. Anything else?
Nope, that's it for now.
Okay, any questions of Kirsten? Hearing none, we thank you for your report.
Thanks.
Normally, we would have also a report from the Boise Public Library Foundation, but our president couldn't be here today, so we will wait and hear from them next month. It takes us to Jessica's report.
Thank you. I just have a couple things this morning. First off, I really want to extend a warm welcome to Evelyn as well. Staff are super excited about your background and want you to be able to contribute. And we will make sure when we'll have a lot of staff come up and present today, we'll give you an opportunity to know them by name and title and what they do. So we've also coincidentally, but quite fortuitously, this meeting will focus a lot on strategic planning. Which is why, as a reminder, I left all of you a copy of the strategic framework for impact that we've been implementing under for the last 2 years. July is our mid-year check-in with the board. And so this is going to be a great opportunity. So some of this will be redundant to those of you on the board, but it was really such a great opportunity for Evelyn to really get a crash course in the strategic plan, what we've been doing to have impact and what we have planning. So really excited about that. Also just wanted, she's not here yet. I know she's stuck in a previous commitment, but also wanted to thank Nikki Pantera. She was also reappointed on the same day that Evelyn was appointed to the board. So really excited to have the skill set that we have on the board right now. Just two other quick things I wanted to mention. The FY26 budget process continues. And the next step on that will be the public hearing next Tuesday, July 15th. That's at the 6 o'clock meeting, when the public is invited to provide comments. And we will, as we do in previously, we'll send you a link to that recording if you want to watch it, so you can see what was discussed. And if anything comes up for library, I'll make sure to give you the time stamp, so you know, catch up to that. And the one,
And just to be clear, that is for the full city
correct.
Budget,
Full city
not just our budget.
not just our budget, no, but that was the budget that you all reviewed and approved in June. That becomes part of the larger city budget with all the departments, and that is what is council will be hearing about. And then the last thing I just wanted to say is, right now we have an open call for the Boise City Writer in Residence program, which this will be our 3rd year. And this is in partnership with Arts and History at the Cabin. We will be selecting 2 writers in residence. They'll each have a 6-month residency in which they do public workshops about writing. They're really remarkable workshops. If you are interested in writing, about learning the craft of writing, learning how the community of Boise supports its writers, I really recommend them. They're all posted on our website, as is the application for our next round. Applications are due July 28th. So if people are interested in applying, I just want to use this opportunity to plug this with the public, because I think this is a real unique program that we have done with Arts and History and with the Cabin, and I really see the community that these writers are building and working, and as they're doing their own writing as well. And with that, I'll see if you have questions.
The next item is request for reconsideration. Just to say that we have no request for reconsideration this month, and it's been a while now, actually, since we've had one. It's very fun. Yes.
2 months.
Question? No. Right, and then we move on to the next item, which is election of officers. So this is a little bit different from the normal time frame. Normally, we elect officers in September, but with the resignation of our president, Rebecca, we need to move this item forward. And so I'm going to recommend that we just elect officers for the next basically 2 months, 3 months, and then have another slate of officers starting in September for the annual meeting, which is the normal time frame, and have that for a full 12 months. So I'd like to entertain a motion that I move from vice president to be president and that Nikki be selected as vice president for this 2-month period. And then we will take up a full year slate of officers and anyone who is interested in that position, in any of those positions at that point, take it up at that point. That's amenable to the rest of the board members.
Is that a motion?
No, actually, I'm not going to do a motion. I would entertain a motion for a slate to elect a slate of officers that includes me as president and Nikki as vice president.
Move that we approve the proposal.
Second. Roll call.
Johnson,
Yes.
Kamal,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Yes. Right. So the next item is our educational item. This is where we're going to hear a kind of a deep dive into the acquisition. Technical service staff tell us a little bit about an overview of the library's world languages collection, which is, I know, something that you're interested in hearing more about for a while now.
This is, so we have, as you can see in our strategic plan on the expand access, one of our real pillars is making sure that our collections, programs and services are available when, where and how people want them. And we have a goal under that of assuring that every community member has access to library materials that are accessible and welcoming to them. And that includes the languages that they read in. So this is work Captain Stalder, who is our acquisitions and technical services manager. Evelyn, that means she is responsible for purchasing all of the items in our collection, both print and digital. Current collection development, librarians and specialists. She's been leading some of this work that I think is a really important effort that she's undertaken to really try something new. And we're excited that you'll get the opportunity to hear about the work that she's doing and then help us think about what we could be doing to really make sure that we're helping people take advantage of these resources.
So before you start, I just want to acknowledge that City Council member Ash has joined us, and thank you for being part of the party. So it's fine. But they have to.
Council President Nash is the council liaison to the library board. This is Evelyn Johnson's first meeting, so she's doing a lot. We're using the opportunity to do a lot of talking about our strategic plan with her.
Thank you for having me today. Welcome to the board. I'm excited to be here to talk about what we've been doing with the world language collections. We were able to explore a partnership with the Library of Congress in a way that hasn't been possible in the past. And we are excited about it because we were one of the libraries that has and they have field offices all across the globe. And what we found out is that they actually can go out and purchase on our behalf. So our collection development team worked with several of the field offices. We ended up settling on kind of 4 key areas that we feel like that's where most of our immigrants and refugees are coming from with our target languages. And we weren't really sure what to expect. So we went into it knowing that it was going to be an exploratory project where we could figure out what type of quality of materials were we getting, how effective we were at being able to bring in materials. Were we getting the type of material that we really wanted and thought that our community could use? So we looked at it as being a finite project where we would explore the opportunity, see what the costs were, see how intensive it was staff time, resource-wise, and then what the benefit is for the community. So we wanted to cast a wide net to try to get a lot of languages that are really challenging to buy in any other way. We have explored different vendors over the years. We looked into international book fairs. We have reached out to a variety of libraries to see who they purchase through. And world languages continue to be a challenge for libraries across the country. So this was an interesting opportunity for us to really try to get local content in local languages that we had never had the opportunity to do before. So the collection development team, they filled out profiles. We indicated that our primary focus was going to be fiction and topical, popular nonfiction. We didn't want anything that was too arcane, too hyper specific to a certain area, but something that would maybe speak to the communities that had moved over here, that would make them feel a little bit of home, but also be able to get something in their own language that they could really interact with and would be meaningful. What we learned is that the availability of the content would be primarily for adults. That was a little bit of a bummer for us because we do have a large population of the children and parents come in to use that collection together. So we were kind of hoping to get a little bit more in the children's realm. But we decided to continue to pursue the opportunity because we really wanted to see what we could get. So we moved forward with it, and the Library of Congress field offices that we worked with and partnered with primarily were the Africa field office, which we selected primarily Congo, kind of that area, Kenya, Rwanda, Uganda. So Middle East office, Afghanistan, Pakistan, South Asia, and then also Southeast Asia, because that's a really large territory. So it's a couple of different offices there. But we've focused in on India, Nepal, Sri Lanka. So we were trying to find the languages that we were seeing kind of bubble up in the demographics that are moving to Boise and that are using the Boise resources. So we really wanted to try to focus on the people who are here and see what we could get in those languages. So we began getting shipments. We started the process kind of in like 2023, and then we actually began getting shipments in 2024. It's a slow process because the Library of Congress staff actually go to local markets, they go out to book sales, they go to different international fairs, and they buy materials on our behalf. It is also cost effective for them to ship us materials in bulk. So they would hold on to them for a while and then ship when they would get a large shipment in, so that it would save some money on shipping costs, because shipping costs were very high. So far, what we've been able to get since the shipments began was about 520 titles in Arabic, 5 in Hindi. So you can see that I don't want to go too far into it. We also did find out that we got a large shipment of African titles that were in English. And when we reached out to the field office to explore that, why we got so many in English, when we expressed that we wanted them in the local languages, that is primarily the language that they publish in, is English and French. So the literacy in those areas really tends to be more English and French, and they have better marketing, it turns out, so they can sell to a wider group. So they don't publish as many titles in some of the smaller languages that we were, I shouldn't say smaller, but more regional languages that we were really hoping to get. So that was very much a learning curve for us. We did create some lists of those items, and it was really great because it coincided with the Ultimate Book Nerd category that I think it was an African author. So we were able to pair and be able to say, like, these are really exciting options for that category. So we were still able to use it, and it just wasn't quite what we were hoping for. We are still expecting at least 250 additional titles in the various languages, and those titles are going to be what kind of wraps up the partnership. So like I said, we wanted to set kind of a finite time to work with the Library of Congress for them to be shipping us materials. And now what we want to do is kind of move into the analytics stage. But I also don't want you to think that we overlooked the other collections. So the youth collections, we do still really want to make sure that we're hitting all of our community as much as possible. And so when they realized that most of the materials coming from Library of Congress would be coming for adults, then we expanded and looked a little bit into some different options. And in October 2024, the collection development team, in conjunction with our digital resources team, they brought in what's called Look for Kids. It's a digital resource that has high quality collection of audio enhanced flip books, read along stories, activities with over 90 languages available. They continue to add content, and they continue to add languages. And it's not an AI reader, which is really important to us. It really is. They try to bring in quality narrators, people who are going to know the languages, and be something that is engaging and not just an AI voice. So they did a good job of reaching out and finding a resource. It does also help because while it's digital and we know that a lot of kids and parents prefer their materials in print, it's really hard to get these materials in print. So it's an option at least that we can offer and try to make it available. So we're going to be watching it closely to see what the adoption rate is on that, how people are interacting with it, and whether or not it actually fills the need that we're hoping it will fill. Then also since 2004, we've added over 400 picture books and chapter books for youth. Those were primarily ordered in Arabic, French, Hindi, Japanese, Korean, Mandarin, and Spanish. So we tried to expand a little bit those collections that we already have some titles in and that we were seeing some usage in and that we could get high quality content. So it's limiting on getting high quality content, and the accessibility of the materials is limiting. But I am excited that we were able to get some titles in languages that we really hadn't developed those collections previously. So I think that this will give us a great opportunity to start to analyze, are we getting some of the right titles? How does that look? Are we filling that need? So our next steps with this is marketing. So the world languages collections recently were highlighted on the library's website. So our marketing manager has done an amazing job of making some great connections and making sure that we're getting it front and center wherever we can and makes sense. And so we had it highlighted on our, I think we call it the hero piece where it kind of rotates through. And that was fun. And then our Neighbors United, the Islamic Center, and the Idaho Office for Refugees, they've also highlighted all of these additions in their kind of recent newsletters. And that's very much due to Siobhan's work of reaching out, connecting. And we're really excited to try to get the message out to the communities that it will make a difference to and be meaningful to. We have some further plans to highlight the world language collections and language learning resources. Those are kind of in the works, and Siobhan's working on some different ideas where that might be meaningful and how we can continue to make connections. And then the next step beyond that is analysis. So staff are going to analyze the usage and gauge interest in the languages that we did bring on. We've had very small collections, and world languages are one of the hardest things. We spent, roughly $1.7 million on collections for English speakers, and then we still don't meet the need, right? And so when you're really considering the fact of how you're trying to reach a community of people with meaningful content for them, it's definitely a challenge. And so we want to try to gauge, are we hitting the right types of materials? Is this something that we're meeting the community need, or are we off the mark somehow? So that's what we're going to really be focusing on in the next step of this, is insights into really, did we do a good job with some of the titles, materials, and then are we getting out to that diverse community, and are we marketing in the right ways? And if we're still marketing in the right ways, we're not getting a lot of uptake with materials, we need to do something differently. And then that will also help us drive some more focus on which languages we really do try to build out as we move forward. Building out as many languages as we've recently brought in, it would be very challenging. So we'll probably need to really analyze that and then see where we're making the most impact and that forward. So that mind, any questions you have?
So first I want to thank you for this work, and Jessica knows I've been interested in this. There was a lot of interest, especially from resettled refugee community, when we put that at the Islamic Center of Boise. So that received a very positive feedback on that. And there was a question that community asked, how do we get to put our input in the kind of selections that the library is doing? Because how do we get to read some of the books that we long for and don't get to see? So I said, I can bring that on the table when I go to the meeting. And maybe, something like a survey with the community overall members would be helpful to gauge their interest and see what exactly they're looking at in the month.
I think that's great, and it's exciting that your community is interested and wants to engage. I do think that we can certainly look at doing kind of a survey. Individuals are also welcome to have a request an item form, so they're welcome to fill that out if there's specific interest in the title. If it's more sort of subject or kind of theme related, not to make you be the go-to, but if you hear something, we are, any way that you want to get that information to us, we are happy to have it.
I know from my own personal experience, my dad was there for a short time. And he ordered some Urdu books and he actually got those books. So I said, okay, this is on track.
That's great to hear. Thank you. Thank you for the feedback.
Other questions, comments? What one is, what rough numbers are we talking about?
It's a little bit hard to tell. We're still getting some of the invoices. That's been part of the struggle with this project, is that the Library of Congress field offices do work on their own pace very much. And DFA was very kind in working with us on trying to make sure that we checked all the boxes and were purchasing within our limitations. We did use gift funds for this because it was messy over the fiscal years in a way that it's much harder to do with regular materials funds. But I will say roughly 30,000. The very long introductions.
And that's the Mary Claire Allison Fund. You'll remember that's a fund that was set up that, was designed when the fund was set up to supplement the print books in the library. And so we tend to use that for a sort of a one-time investment. And this, as Kathy said, because of the ability for us to be a little more flexible, it's a really good use for that year of that fund.
Thank you very
Questions, comments? Thanks so much. All right, that takes us to our policy review. This month, we're doing section 7, use of meeting rooms.
We'll tee this up for Evelyn. By state statute, on an annual basis, the board reviews all library policy, and we make it as easy as possible by breaking them up. And over the course of the year, on a monthly basis, you'll review certain policies. What happens on the back end is we look at it from does this still work for our users? We also ask legal to look at something changed in the legal framework that we need to address. It's Sarah Kelly Chase, who is one of our 2 public services senior managers. Ray Lewis is the other one. She's not speaking today, but she's behind you. It is Sarah's job to keep the giant spreadsheet that tracks it's a beautiful sheet what's coming up and when. We put it in the board packet, and if we have any recommended changes, we'll have a red line version, so you'll be aware of what that is.
And usually a description of why we're recommending those changes. Thank you, that's beautiful, Tia. So my goal is always to get us all the way through policy by our August meeting, our August meeting, so September you can have your own meeting. So this is the second to last section. So we're looking at section 7.0, use of meeting rooms. So the policy itself is just a rundown of what the board's responsibilities are and the director's responsibilities in meeting rooms. And then the regulation underneath, actually that's something else I should share for you. Evelyn's policy, the board establishes and votes on. So we recommended changes, you all have to agree to that. Regulation is sort of what supports that policy. We always run it past you and give a rationale when we're making changes, but you don't have to vote on it. So yeah, so the second piece of 7.0 is 7.01A, and that's just the meeting rules and regulations. We don't have any recommended changes for it. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. That was quick.
Yeah, so now we're gonna have Emily Johnson. And Elaine Johnson is the library's chief administrative officer. And she will do our 6-month strategic planning check-in, and I liked how the 6-month is you've extended that quite a bit.
I don't even know where we've come from, so I did take the liberty of taking us back and then we'll move forward, but there's a lot to say with the strategic plan. We are doing great on moving the needle on our initiatives, so excited to get to chat with you about what we've been up to. You're not here. We're gonna prepare you for study wrap. Just all building systems. Okay. All right, so our strategic plan implementation. Am I clicking, Carrie?
Yep.
So the strategic framework for impact was approved by the board in 2023. We gave an update in 2024 in July, as Jessica mentioned, and then I'm excited to give you an update today of where we are. I will take us back a little bit just to bring us all along. So how did we get here? In 2022, we kicked off a comprehensive strategic planning process, really wanting to focus on listening to what the community and our partners needed and wanted from the library. So we started with our staff, really wanting to hear what our experts in-house had to say about what our goals were and what we wanted to do to best serve the community, as well as our partners with the city and library leadership. We then shifted our focus to more community engagement and rolled out a very comprehensive community listening and conversation sessions, really to understand what the community needed from the library. And when I say community, I mean the residents of Boise, as well as our community partners, really wanting to understand what they were looking for from the library. And then we also did take a look at some of the other libraries that are similar or that we could aspire to be, to get some peer benchmarking, just to understand what's going on out there that's exciting that we may want to be aware of. We compiled all of that input into our phase 1 summary. So it was a lot of information that we put together so we could kind of take a look at it and see what themes and really important takeaways we found. In the spring, summer of 23, we took that phase 1 summary and really processed all that information, identified our basic strategic priorities, and then set some goals to help us really move the mark on those priorities. And the board approved that strategic framework for success, or for impact, in 2023. We got to work right away implementing the strategic plan. And we've taken a 2-prong approach to implementing our plan, and I'll talk about both of those in a minute. But one of our approaches is really library leadership led, and then the other, we wanted to recognize the expertise of our staff, and of course their knowledge of library work and their passion for serving the community. So we chose to implement staff sprint teams using strategic doing. So we are tackling the plan for both of those angles. And then we're here today giving you an update on where we are. So our 4 strategic priority areas are expanding impact. Oh my goodness, expanding access, increasing impact. I see this a lot, so I should know this better. Optimizing resources and measuring value. And we took those really broad areas and created some goals that support each of those. And I should note that at the end of each year, we really take a step back and evaluate where are we, what makes sense to be our next priority, so that we remain focused in the coming year on really moving the mark and making sure that we are moving forward in our goals. So I do want to talk about the implementation. And I'm going to start here with this table. And I'm realizing as I'm sitting here how tiny it is. But here, I just wanted to really show, first of all, what we're working on, but also where our strategic priorities lie, the goals that roll up to support each of those priorities. And then this particular slide shows the work that our staff sprint teams are doing and have been working on since the framework was approved. And just really quickly, we chose we really intentionally wanted to make sure that our staff was included in the implementation of the strategic plan. We heard as we surveyed them how important this work was. So we wanted to make sure that however we implemented this plan, that staff had a role in making sure it was successful. So we chose a model called strategic doing that utilizes sprint teams, and they are intentionally built to work in short bursts on very complex projects to really think outside of the box. And it has been super rewarding to watch our staff lean into this process. And you feel like you're not moving at the mark because you're doing these small projects. But when I was looking back over this, it's incredible the work that they've done and the impact they've had on how we're able to serve the community. So we've had sprint teams in operation since 2023, working in these specific areas. And I'll talk a little bit more in detail here, but I just wanted to kind of show how this all rolls up and what our sprint teams are helping us work on. So the first sprint team that I'll talk about was in 2023. They were working under the expanding access priority, and each sprint team is given a very ambitious, intentionally ambitious framing question that they work towards. So their framing question was how might we ensure that every community member has access to library materials in a format that works for them. And this team worked really hard to create a brochure that is still being used today for our new card members to help them understand the services that the library offers that not everybody understands or is aware of. So really wanting to make sure people know you can get books at the library, but did you know you could do all of these other things? We continue to use those today. And bless their hearts, this is one of our first sprint team. We were really learning during this process, so they were good sports to make through this for us. So our next sprint team, again in 2023, falling under the increased impact area, and I'm not going to read the slide to you so you can all read it, but I did want to note their outcome. They were really focusing on community partnerships and how we can make sure that we are maximizing our partnerships to best serve the community. They did a ton of research and came back to us with a needs assessment that really helped us guide a system-wide approach to community partnership management. You'll see in a further slide, our library leadership team has actually picked up this work based on their recommendations and built out a platform that is helping us manage our partners and a system for managing them and making sure that we are really aware of who our partners are and that we're working with them in the most efficient way. So this will have implications for us for a long time and helping us do more with less with our partners. So really great work from this team. 2024, we had a sprint team that was really focused on making sure that we were meeting the literacy needs of all of our Boise residents. And we actually got to hear from them last month. So they did a lot of research on launching 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten as an early literacy program that is very established, very data-driven. So they did a lot of work and came back with a recommendation of we should implement this program and how we can do it. And then as you heard last month, our leadership team has picked that up and we now have 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program actively operating out of all our. So great impact. Another group, Optimize Resources, really focusing on how we can, and this was a big focus for a lot. In fact, I believe the last 3 slides here are all sprint teams focusing on that question, how might we ensure that every staff member is empowered through high quality training, making sure that our staff feel supported and is well trained was a really loud piece of our plan, the input that we gathered. We heard that the staff really, and the community want to make sure that our staff have what they need. So this sprint team particularly did a ton of research on what our staff wants out of training and how we can best support them. They coined that they were creating everything we needed to host the best in-service day ever. That term has really stuck. We still talk about that. And it was really exciting. They did a lot of collection of information. And then last year we hosted the best in-service day ever. This year we are building on that and will host even the better in-service day ever. But we're still building on all of the input that gave us. Really good information. In 24, we had a sprint team also looking at making sure our staff is highly trained and well supported. And they really looked at the social and emotional capacity of our staff and how can we feel connected and supported and engaged with each other. They came back with a recommendation to create what we're calling our REC committee, which is a staff-led committee that is really just making sure we're connecting with each other, we are engaging with each other, and we're having fun. In fact, there is a staff bingo game going around even as we speak. So this committee is in action now as a result of the sprint team. And then finally, the sprint team just wrapped up last month, and we switched the framing question. As I mentioned, we evaluate where we are and then switch our goals depending on what we think our greatest need was. We really found that we had some room for improvement in training our staff on core library functions. So we gave that very small task to this team and said, how do we do that with our current makeup? And they came back with a lot of research and some recommendations on a structure for us to be able to train our staff and make sure they're supported well. That work is being handed off to our management and leadership team now. So we look forward to seeing all of that amazing research that they did come back and making sure that our staff is supported actually. So those are what our sprint teams have been working on since the plan was approved. This other incredibly small slide here are the goals that our leadership and management team have been working on. Several of these are supporting some of the work that was handed off from the sprint teams. Others just make sense for us to be running, for example, the facilities plan. We also, Siobhan has already got a shout out, but I'm going to give her another one. We know, as some of you remember, there was a lot of services the library offers that people maybe didn't know about. So we intentionally brought on our marketing manager, Siobhan, just to help increase awareness, like our world language collection on what you can get from the library membership. And then another impact that I think the board has seen pretty regularly is data collection. We were able to hire James, our data analyst, who is increasing how we are able to use data and tell the story of the impact of the library. So it's pretty amazing the progress we've made on the strategic plan up to this point, using both staff and leadership in a really exciting way. That's what I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions anybody has.
Anyone have questions?
And I'm sure we may want to send out the slides so you can read them a little bit. It looks fine on my computer screen. They're real tiny up there.
Questions, anyone?
Sure, everyone got all of that off the screen.
Yes, I did. I will say, thank you for that. And engaging the staff, I think, is one of the things that I'm most proud about with this work. We heard during COVID, there were so many places where staff had to really be flexible and move to different locations. And we're learning how to, they were meeting colleagues they hadn't worked with before. And they wanted that engagement. And so when we did that when we did the staff survey, that real hunger of working together, we wanted to build on that. And I think some of the most exciting pieces that have come out of that is the stronger connections across staff. So the sprint teams are, they are a cross section of different locations, different areas of focus, but coming together to really come up with something that serves the public. And I think that's the other piece. It's just, this is everything that we heard from the community that we've been able to. And so I think that part is, things that I think that we really did well. We got lots of things that we still wanted to do, but I think, when we talk about the strategic plan, it really is that implementation that we've been really focused on. And just lastly, I'll say, we had it as tentative on the closure that you approved. We are absolutely going to do the staff in service day again this year. It'll be Monday, October 13th, where it will close to the public. Last year, we asked you to come and gave you a role. I don't know for a fact what your role will be, but I know that the project team that's working on that will assign you a role again. I think last year we had you check people in and handing out shirts, and we'll come up with a role. So we'll send you a note about that, just because I think how much staff appreciate getting the opportunity to connect with you a little less formally. And then, and that, again, that was something that was, staff feedback. We thought, okay, best in service day ever. Will people want to do it again? And we heard overwhelmingly from our staff. Yep, it was really important. I learned new skills. I got a chance to connect with colleagues from across the system. And I really had a moment to recharge. So we were very successful in that, and heard really clearly from staff. Yes, we we would like to do this again. It helps us do our job more effectively and really recharge us to do the job as well.
I'm just staying because I think I.
Yeah, you are.
Questions, comments, thoughts? Move on to
Yep.
the next item, capital projects. update.
Capital projects update. I will get this kicked off. I will be joined here for answering questions by Emily Johnson, who you already met, but then also Lindsay Erb, who is in our Public Works Department. Remember your, it's long. It's long, right?
Senior program manager.
So as a city department, we really benefit from the expertise of our of the other city departments. In Public Works, it is Lindsay's job to really make sure that the library buildings are safe and accessible for everyone. And we always joke about the fact that I want a roof that doesn't leak, and she can get us a roof that doesn't leak. So really been expertise. So the goals of this presentation that we are doing. There we go. Okay. So I want to provide an overview of the investments in the downtown library. So this first part will be redundant or will be repetitive to some of you, but this will be great. Like I said, we're just using this opportunity to really highlight some of the work that the library is doing. I want to focus a preview on some of the upcoming renovations, and really I want to focus on the work that we've done internally since our April board meeting. And as you remember, in April, that's really when we announced the decisions that we needed to close the first floor to the public for a year in order to do that renovation. Really, you know, we have to prioritize safety for staff and the public, and the complexity and the level of work that needs to be done really warranted that decision. So after that, what we'll do is I'll quickly catch you up, and then we're going to share a timeline for working next steps. And then we're going to preview some of the upcoming closures that we'll be bringing back to the board to approve. So no action item today on those closures, but we've listed out when we will be coming back with those. I loved having the opportunity to review our mission statement with the mission of the Boise Public Library to provide access and opportunity for everyone by connecting people to ideas, information, and community. Because that has really been our focus for this work, particularly at this location. It is, it opened to the public in April 27th of 1973, so more than 50 years ago. And it today is our busiest location. Got about 900 people that visit each day, and that's about 46% of the people who visit a library in person are coming here. So any disruption to services is really something that we wanted to be as thoughtful about and as careful about. And a lot of this work grew out of following the passage of the initiative that halted the construction of the new main library project. There's some significant work that came out of that. The community said very loudly and clearly, this is the building that the library will be in. And so we did the work then to make this the building that we could be in for the extended period of time. So after that vote in 2019 and 2020, Public Works did a facilities condition assessment of the building to understand sort of how was it structurally and what did we need to invest in it in order to catch it up for its deferred maintenance and for its future usage. So,
and for Evelyn's benefit, there was a lot of deferred maintenance on the assumption they're going to level this building and put a new one up.
Yeah.
And so it's more than your typical,
yes.
No,
I think that's a really good point that when the building was going to be demolished, there wasn't the need to invest in it. And so there was okay, how do we catch it up? And how do we make sure it's safe and accessible for everyone who visits it? So Public Works did that work. It's a structurally sound building. and had a leaky roof. It no longer does. But really coming up with that list of things. So there was the deferred maintenance, and then there was also the really wanting to make sure that it met the requirements of the American with Disabilities Act, which passed after the library started being in use. So there's just been a lot of investments that have happened in this building to really catch it up and to make it accessible. So in 22, that's where we saw that roof replacement. We also installed the first automated book sorter, which you can see downstairs on the first floor to really make us more efficient. In 2023, we started doing the upgrades to we call this the 4-story tower, to those restrooms. So as we toured, we actually, went through and made those investments as well. We did some space moved some staff around, need a staff workspace on the 4th floor where we were able to move our ATS technical services staff up. And then we're able to remodel the first floor. So we've been, after that condition assessment, the city put money behind this project to really catch this building up. And so this first floor project is really the culmination of that work to make sure that, particularly in the youth services area, that we have caught up and have the same safe and accessible space for everybody.
The feedback on people on the 4th floor to moving in up there. We saw it before the remodel. That was kind of gross. and didn't see it after, but it's a lot of positive feedback.
Oh my gosh, we are remiss in not giving you the after tour of that. We can arrange that. It is a very nice space. And in fact, when we're moving, we will be moving people up from the 3rd floor, the admin office, actually up into the 4th floor as we're getting ready for the 1st floor remodel. It is a very nice space to work in now. So the 1st floor investments that we're doing this year, really that goal is accessibility, safety, improved usage. So we want to create a welcoming space for everyone. This means we're going to remove the current circulation desk, install a new accessible circulation desk, install accessible restrooms and new services. And really, to me, this is prioritizing children that grow up in the library. There are people who have been coming to this library for years, first with their kids and now with their grandkids. And we know how important it is to have a library where you feel welcome and that you can walk in and find your books and find your library staff. So we really want to expand our space for programs and services and really improve the ability to meet demands for our youth, printed materials. This is one of the things that we've talked about as a board, how we've seen this real addition of growth in our digital usage by adults, but we're really, really pleased to see that continued growth in print for youth materials. Just knowing how important that is to literacy is really making sure we've got a collection of print materials that keeps up with our community. So this is what it looks like today when you walk into the 1st floor. So Ryan, to your point about we've seen what it looks like before, what could it seem like after? So this is what happens when you walk into the front door today. Again, non-accessible circulation desk. As a kid in a stroller, you can't actually see where you go. And so the new configuration to me is very exciting. It has a wow factor and it has an openness and a vibrancy that we just don't have today. So we talk about this as, when you come into the library, if you're in a stroller and you are pre-verbal, you should be able to point to where you want your adult to take you. And you can't do that in our current building. I see kids walk in the door today and look around and don't know where to go, right? So this will be a real clear line of sight to where the kids go. The other thing is if you're in a wheelchair, you should be able to walk in and make eye contact with a staff person. You also can't do that in today's 1st floor. You won't be able to do that in the current or in the future. And just if there are any library people listening, every time we look at this, we all cringe. There will be no white furniture ordered. It looks beautiful in this artist rendering, but just very impractical. What you do see in here, obviously you see the new circulation desk in the back. You see that we have opened up that space. We will be able to narrow some of those columns so that more light gets through. We are it's such a beautiful location in the city along the Greenbelt, and to have the opportunity to have more windows, I think is really important. I think we'll have sunsets in the library, which would just be kind of remarkable. And you can see right now the Hayes Auditorium. There's also windows built into, we'll be adding windows on the west side of the building and then inside the building because we want to take advantage of the light and the location. And I think that, is quite a remarkable feat that we have here. There's also lights and sound baffling, really to make this a space that is just modern and vibrant and allows for people to connect in a big way. So since we last spoke about this in April, here's the work that we have been doing sort of on the planning side to get us ready for this project. First, we've really, shared with staff and the public the overall renovation timeline and why we're doing this. We identified our priorities during renovation. I think you'll remember that, keeping the building open for people who need it, have access to our collections, and having ability to answer questions and provide access to technology, doing programs when we have space and capacity. We've created a project timeline and a team to oversee planning. So a lot of the managers that you've had the opportunity to hear from at board meetings have been really focused on, okay, how do we configure the space in the short term so that we're continuing to meet the needs of our public. We've created a plan to capture and address staff public questions. It's been really helpful for us when staff are being asked questions from the public, for them to have a way to make sure that we're capturing those. Because if we get a question 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 times, wow, we know we need to do some more communication around it. We've determined where the collections will be located through construction. I'll show you that shortly. We've created a website to update the public, and we've created a proposed closure schedule. Some of the work will actually require us to close the building entirely. What lies ahead for us, we really are finalizing the logistics of the move off the first floor and reconfigurations of the second, third, fourth floors. We're still refining the service point locations and how they'll be staffed. So where will you have a staff person? We think at the beginning we might need somebody in one location, but they may need to move. So having some planning around that. And then we're also really focused on, okay, how do we keep doing programming? Knowing we'll have more limited space here. What can we do outside the building? What can we do with other locations? What can we do with our partners? Here's where we really trying to focus on communicating with the public, because we know we want people to know about the project, why we're doing it, but also how to use the library while we are doing this change. And we're really, looking for help to get the word out, because we're hearing, some people think, oh, we're closing the entire building. Some people think, oh, we're just closing the first floor so there won't be a youth service space. We're really trying to find ways to talk about how our services will change, but we still want people coming to the library and expecting, yes, there will be places where you could, find your favorite children's book, or where you can find a picture book, or where you can, find the fiction, the new books. We're just things may look in a different spot. So you can see the first floor closures and how we're framing that. This library construction website also talks about the upcoming investment in our Cole and Houston location, which will have some changes to the book drop while we're adding that automated book sorter. So encourage people to look at all the different ways that we're trying to get the word out on this. Newsletters, social media, signage, metal locations, and the specific outreach plans that we've done for organizations. So to that point about collection spaces, this is what the configurations of the second and third floors will look like. We'll be using that the first elevator, when you first walk into the building, we have a vestibule to the right. That will be open for public use, and that'll get people to there's a staircase and an elevator. That will get people to the second and third floor. The second floor right now is mostly nonfiction and computers. It will hold the nonfiction, fictions holds, and our new books. We're doing some planning to have those collections together. And the third floor, I think we'll see some of the biggest change because right now the third floor is our quiet floor, and we are moving our youth and teen to the third floor. So to expect it to be a little louder here. You'll also see we're moving the movies, audiovisual, books, CDs, graphic novels, large print, our periodicals. They'll be here in this room and then the room across the hallway. And then the admin office, as I mentioned earlier, will be moving upstairs and we'll be using that space for our Idaho collection and government docs and maps. So there may be, in that case, we may have a little bit more limited hours on some of those or create more creative ways of accessing materials. But the idea really is to try to prioritize as much book usage as possible. Whoops. Okay. Structure planning. I'm going to move around. So here's what we've done on the construction side. So, Emily's been really focused on how do we move people and services and our stuff around? And Lindsay has been really doing what do we need to make sure that we are doing? She's the one who's doing the construction document plans, the bid process. When these different bid packages are put together, she's the one who makes those, she publishes those, and then does the review of the bids that comes in. She's finalizing the actual review of those contracts, getting those negotiated and ready to go, and then putting the budgets that we have for furniture, shelving, IT, putting all those budgets together. And so what lies ahead for us is in August, we will be going on the August 12th City Council approval. We'll be going through with CMCO with the contract. And we're having that all lined up. And we're also hoping to bring in some interim budget changes to align the funds with the contract. And this, you've known that in previous meetings, we have, when we need to make an adjustment to our budget from the current, if we're in the current fiscal year, we do something called an interim budget change that allows us to either move funding from one source to another or align it with a contract. And then September, the relocation of the first floor collection and services and staff, and the construction will start. So I'm going to go back to this slide. We have some closure dates. Right now, these are tentative, but you will see sort of the work that we need, that we know we'll need where we will need to close. This will be closing entirely to the public. And then where we'll have the dates of when we will publish a board packet and we'll need your approval date for the planned closure. In September, as the move out, we will need to close to the public for about 3 days in order to move everything off of the first floor and move items into the second and third floor and to do the reconfiguration and to set up any of the computers. So we're working to finalize that. We anticipate bringing that, or we will be bringing that to you in August with August 4th. And once we do that, then the first floor demolition starts and CM really has that construction site that they can work in without interruption. The next closures that we're looking at won't be until 2026. and they're really mostly focused on the electrical work. We're basically building a redundant electrical system in the building, and then we'll need to close one side off and restart it on the other. This is where Lindsay will really be dependent on coordinating with CM, but also with Idaho Power to have those tie-in dates. So that's where it is a little TBD. But if anybody's done any sort of a home renovation project, we know how much of it is.
As I look at this though, are you anticipating like being closed for 2 days and then open up again and then close a week later for 2 or 3 days? Or are you talking about 12 days, 15 days, whatever it turns out to be, all in one big hunk? A sense of that, too.
The TV asterisks,
Right.
things could change. I feel like when we talk about construction, that's always the disclaimer. What we're hearing from the contractor right now is we would close for a couple of days, tie in the first floor, reopen, get everything ready, close for a couple of days, tie in the second floor, reopen. I think because what we learned from the tower work is this building sometimes has other plans. So we wanted to get this in front as this is our plan now. Once we are in actually doing the work, we may come back to this group and say, hey, guess what we learned? And guess what's happening? From what I understand from the contractor now, that's the plan we're moving forward with. When we get in the walls, we may come back and want to chat a little.
Thank you.
And our contractor has the board packet dates built into their schedule, so they'll know, okay, if we have something that we know is planned, this is the cadence that we need to be able to bring it in front of the board. We will also say from work that we have done in the tower, I do remember making at least one call to say, hey, we're having an unplanned for sure right now. But we also have we have the process for that. But this is the process that we use for the planned predictable closures.
Wild and stressful here.
It's gonna be great when it's all done.
It is going to be great when it's all done. We keep remembering. I think at our planning meetings, we always start with a story about someone who's using the library and what this renovation can mean for them. Because we are going to ask a lot of staff, and they'll be working on a different floor, or they may be working with a collection that they're not as familiar with. We got lots of work time that we've been able to put together on sort of change management, but then also giving them the opportunity to be ready for that new question or that new location. Because we want this, we know this will be disruptive. We are just trying to make it as little disruption as possible.
I guess just a recommendation. It is, no matter how much communication you tell people, there's going to be people that want to have, I have no idea what the hell's going on. And perhaps having someone stationed in there as you immediately walk in to say, oh, if you're here for youth, it's going to be on this floor. You take the take left here, you see the elevator. That's so that I just think that especially the first month or two, I think
It's like you're on the project team. We've talked about that because our managers, they're in that. We're heavily working with Siobhan on wayfinding. You can't oversight for something like this. And until the public gets used to the flow, that door is like the invisible door. It's there, but I don't think people know about it. So we've literally said that our managers will be down greeting people, just making sure everybody knows we're open, come on in, get on the elevator, go on up. Once they get used to that pattern, I think we can assess if it's still necessary, but we've had that exact conversation. So, yeah.
Yeah, and that was, in COVID, we had a staff person that was right at the front of the building to help people know how to get around or where to do it. And so we've had experience with that and just saw how helpful that is in helping people negotiate or just like, where do I go? Yeah. This looks like a construction zone. It's like, oh, if you go up the floor, hopefully it'll look more like a library you remember.
Yeah, and I'll just add that this is a big ask, a big lift in the library system, and this team's been amazing to work with as far as thinking outside the box and pulling together meetings, logistics, and Zoe on my team's been helpful with some of that activity, and there's just a lot of behind the scenes work that's been going into this that is so appreciated, so it will be great when it's done, but it's gonna be a fun, exciting year.
Yep.
Thank you for the update. That's a fun begin.
Game on.
Right, if there aren't any other questions, we'll move on to new business. Over to Jessica. You have the next item.
And this builds from a previous discussion. In particular, I mentioned that we are, we are on schedule and want to be able to go to council on August 12th with both the bid package, which is done, but also that funding piece. And so what I wanted to do is talk to you about a Friends of the Boise Public Library gift. This is an action item for you as well. I also this will be the opportunity, this is our first update to the full board about some ongoing discussions we've had with the Friends of the Boise Public Library, specifically related to the first floor renovation project. And these conversations date back to January of 24. So about a year and a half of discussions. And as you know, because of issues related to quorum, we have had these discussions with myself and board leadership and Friends leadership and city leadership as well. So this is where we are at a place where now we can bring this discussion to the full board, whereas before we weren't. So as I said, these go back to January of 24. At that time, Nikki was the board president and Rebecca was vice president. And so both of them were involved in these conversations for the first half of 24. And after your annual meeting, when Rebecca became president and Ron became vice president, then Ron and Rebecca led these conversations on behalf of the board with me. As I said, this also included other parts of the city. So context for this, I really want to provide the board with what decisions what the board has in terms of authority with regards to gifts. Review the legal and policy framework for gifts to the library, and then ask for direction and board support and next steps. So the legal policy framework for gifts goes back to Idaho Code, the library board trustees' powers and duties. On 33-2707 is the board has the power and duty to accept or decline gifts of money or personal property in accordance with library policy and under such terms as may be a condition of the gift. And then the library policy 6.01 gifts, which we reviewed earlier this year, really talks about the role of the board. Particularly gifts of money, real property, and or stock will be accepted if they comply with state and city codes governing such gifts. So as director, when we put forward for you gifts section, in this board packet, you've seen some of the, or you will have seen on a monthly basis some of the gifts that we bring forward for you to approve as part of the consent agenda. We've done the work to make sure that they do comply with state and city code regarding all those gifts. Any questions on that? So the Friends of the Boise Public Library, they are our a support organization for the library. They are an all-volunteer 501c3 nonprofit organization that raises funds to benefit the library. They do that through book sales, media sales, and memberships. So as if you have gone to a book sale here at the library, one of our pop-ups, or if you at maybe Cole and Eustick, actually I don't know if they've done Cole and Eustick, but Hillcrest or Map Crossing, or if you've purchased books through Tree City Books or through one of their online options, you are supporting the Boise Public Library. And since 1970, the Friends have raised more than $3 million for the Boise Public Library's facilities, collections, programs, and staff education. And the list, this list of prior capital projects is from their website that talks about some of the substantive capital contributions they have made going back to 2007 when they helped the branches of Hillcrest and Hollister, then Boise, Back Crossing, and now they have reserved since 2019 with that halted main library project funds for the main library. So when we looked at the budget that we had for the first floor renovation project, the city's budget included what I would call the walls and the wires. Again, going back to that conditional use, really focus on how do we make sure that this is a building with a strong roof, bathrooms that work and don't leak, the fire pump that I think we've all heard how excited, the parking lot, really the walls and the wires. And knowing that we had really sort of, I would say, a once in a generational opportunity to enhance the user experience, we began those discussions in, as I said, 2024 between Friends leadership and board leadership about using that reserve funding to increase the impact of that first floor renovation project. And the then president of the Friends was very enthusiastic about the opportunity for impact, saw incredible strategic alignment with support that the Friends want to provide to the library, and really was, saw some of the images and the usage and the statistics that we've all shown you. And so between then and October, we really went back and forth on presenting a plan for funding to the Friends executive leadership and then the full board, which culminated in multiple presentations to the Friends board and then a formal written request in 2024, which at that time came from Rebecca as president. In February of 25 of this year, the Friends board president confirmed that the Friends would make a $750,000 gift. I wasn't able to bring it to the board for consideration because of the conditions were not conditions that this board could accept. You have authority to accept gifts, but it has to meet the conditions that you have authority for. And at the time, the Friends were putting conditions on the gift that you couldn't meet. And it wasn't, and actually council couldn't meet. The board cannot agree to something in perpetuity. Every board, every council, every administration needs to be able to make decisions at the time. So when that gift was confirmed, it wasn't something that we could bring to the board for consideration because it didn't meet those requirements that are outlined in Idaho code and in your policy. And since then, we've been having meetings with board leadership. This includes the Friends leadership, library board leadership, and city leadership as well. Really wanting to confirm, one, what authority the board has and does not have. And then also really wanting to make sure that that full amount, that $1 million that we have been requesting, was the gift that would be made unconditionally in really the goal of this community impact. So at the end of last month, the Friends confirmed a gift of $1 million with the request to have it in 4 quarterly payments, with the first payment scheduled for July 15th of this year. So this, quite frankly, is very concerning to us in how challenging a payment plan is in terms of the administrative burden that I would place on the city and the risk to that payment not being made in that contract. So today I'm bringing forward to you a recommendation to decline the gift as currently structured and asking that we have the opportunity to direct, this is a full board discussion, and asking you as the board, now we know that the majority of you have not been part of these discussions previously, is to go back and ask the Friends that we really would appreciate having this revised offer from the Friends by the end of the month with a one-time payment so that we can keep to our construction schedule in time for that contract going to council to be approved. To do that, I think we're really close. I know how much, the community supports the Friends because they support the library. And to do that, we will need to ask you all to be available for a special meeting if the Friends agree to make that payment before August 6th. And that's why we asked you to bring your calendars today in the hopes that we would be able to schedule that before you leave. It won't be a full board meeting. It literally will just be a special board meeting where we ask you to accept the gift in a one-time payment, and then we ask you to approve the IBC so that it can go forward to council. And Ron, you've been part of these discussions.
Sure.
I'd love to.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, let me just start by saying, I think we're thrilled that the Friends have agreed to fund the full $1 billion. It's really the shortfall between what you saw in those those renderings rather, and what the city is prepared to fund. But the way the budgeting works within the city, and I'm not any expert in this, but having spent a lot of time trying to understand it, it's very difficult for them to accept a bid unless they have the cash in hand to be able to make to make good on that contract. And the city, this is a particularly difficult time for the city in terms of having reserve funds available to be able to float should funds not come in. So that's why we're asking that the Friends, instead of making the payments or making the $1 million paid quarterly installments, to basically make it all up front. And I think we're close to making that happen. But timing wise, the sort of process is we would decline this particular gift in the way it's structured now and ask them instead to make it in a time payment.
Why did the Friends make this proposal for installments?
I don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I think that it is, a case of keeping the funds longer so they can keep it invested versus, making it sit in a city account.
They've been asked and they respond why they made the proposal. I appreciate that's a guess.
I don't know. They have not been asked specifically.
We have asked for it in a one-time payment, and they've come back with this as a proposal.
They didn't offer, we didn't ask them why this proposal.
We've only asked for it in a one-time payment.
Good question.
And I had this similar question with, so how confident are you that they, what's their motivation to provide one? Because there's clearly a reason why they want to do more, right? So what rationale is presented to them move to a one time?
Well, I hope that the appeal from the full board could make that and the reasoning coming from the board that this is what we need in terms of the administration. When I've connected with the resources we have in public works, with our finance team, with our legal team, they are all recommending and really strongly, this is the cleanest, easiest way with the least amount of risk. And I want to really honor their expertise.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that combined with the board's appreciation of that can really be persuasive for the Friends.
I don't believe that the Friends understood the dynamics in terms of the intra-workings of the city and how difficult it is for them to make the commitment to, to a contract without having the full funds available to them.
Any indication that this is a cash flow problem, basically don't have those funds?
That is not the case. I mean, just based on the 990s, let alone that they have. Significantly in excess of $20.
So really that it is just a matter of helping them understand that the payment plan puts timelines and even completion at risk. But that's what we need to help them understand in order to cover. Okay.
Why don't we do this as just a further negotiation rather than get the board to reject the offer? Why wouldn't we go back and explain to them the contracting process of the city and the reason why this is problematic for us in executing to the plan that we've just presented? It seems odd. We go back and say, well, that's the way it is. We don't want it.
Well, I would hope that's not the message. The fact that they want to have the first payment come July 15th, if you accept that, then that basically says you're accepting the payment plan. And so with the goal is to go back to the Friends after this conversation. Ron and I have talked about, okay, well, we can follow up with the board of the Friends after this.
Yeah. I think we have a timing issue to answer the question. Yeah, they have to go back and vote on a different, the board has to vote on a different proposal to us because they have their own processes internally. And so it just makes it easier for us to say, we can't accept this as it's presented. That gives them then a reason to go back and vote on something. So I guess I would entertain a motion, unless you want more discussion. I'd entertain a motion to decline the gift as presented and to instruct Jessica and I to try to meet with them to come up with an alternative. So with her to discuss with them, invite them to provide an alternative proposal.
Can you put a level of risk that they will not accept the one? Like, how confident do you feel that they will accept a one-time payment or? Because there's obviously at least some chance if we decline that the gift doesn't come through at all. So how high is that?
There is, and I'm quite frankly concerned about it. We've been having these conversations for a year and a half. And know how much intent, they have voted multiple times to fund us. The Friends agree this is a really important project. This will have great impact. There's just such limited ability for us to accept a gift with conditions on it. And I have, this is where we haven't been able to bring you something to discuss at all because of the conditions on it, and you need to be aware of the risk as well. So I'm absolutely confident in the belief that the community has in the Friends. When you go, like as I said, when you go to a book sale, you are supporting the Friends of the Boise Public Library, and this is how we've asked the Friends to support the library. So I think there's a lot of goodwill behind that, but yes, there is a risk in this.
Motion.
I could just add, I really appreciate Jeff's leadership on this. been privy to some of these things behind the scenes, and I think this is the natural recommendation that comes out of making sure partners that aren't the same organizations but have similarly aligned missions are just rowing in the same direction. And I see this as a kind of a natural function to make sure that they understand the city meet the needs and expectations of the library board, and the library board can rely on Friends for its projects. So I'm hopeful, and you have city council and full support to make sure that we kind of get up aligned on some of our goals, needs, and expectations. And I see this as a step in getting there, and you have our full support in being as helpful as we need to be with Friends. So just want to echo that.
I'm repeating myself here, but the troubling thing is we just didn't have an open dialogue about why they had this restriction, why they put it on. And
I'd say we were surprised by the proposal. So
is it,
they never said, we're interested. Here are why we want to do it this way.
is it a better path instead of voting to decline to say, we'd like you to communicate to the Friends that we cannot accept the gift for the purpose it's intended according to the schedule and everything, for reasons of the way the city's procurement process works. And we ask you to reconsider. I'd like to avoid the word decline. It's a nice decline. It's not a decline.
Right.
So then so if I'm understanding, you want to take no action. You're
Yes,
not accepting it, you're not declining.
but informing them that we cannot accept it and use it for the intended purpose that we've shared with them, the timing and everything, given the conditions they have put on it. And it bothers us, it troubles us, we feel strange that we can't accept and go forward, but we can accept and go forward and stick to the plan.
So I'm just going to turn to you. Say that can we do it, structure it that way? I don't want to start get crosswise with our legal obligations here the way it was presented.
It does raise the question of what do we do with the July 15th date? Obviously, we can communicate with the Friends before that, but we would need to have, again, accepting the payment on the 15th would be, well, you haven't accepted it.
Yeah, we're declining to accept it.
Okay.
Particularly motion.
So it's, we're not voting on an accept or decline motion. We're voting on a motion to inform the Friends that given the condition they've applied, we are unable to accept the gift for its intended purpose and schedule as we presented to them. We think they'd be concerned about that, just as we are. But that's the reality due to the way the city's procurement process works. And we're thrilled to receive this gift. We'd love to get it in a time frame where we can use it to execute our plan as we've presented to you. But if not, we can't accept it. So. I'll second that. Roll call, please. Hearing. Roll call, please.
Johnson. Yes. Kamal. Yes. Lenny.
Yes.
Meski.
Yes.
All in favor, motion carries.
And so that was the note we got from Carrie on signal for a meeting early next month.
Correct.
And then we still need to figure.
We still need to come up
Because
with
if
that.
they come, assuming that they come back with. Yes, here's our, we still have to accept that before we go to city council. With the change in budget.
Correct, yeah, so the council meeting is Tuesday, the 12th, and the next board meeting we have is Wednesday, the 13th. So that, this is why we need to schedule a special meeting. It won't be the full board meeting, it really will just have this. Well, two items, one would be the gift, and then the second one, yes,
So,
at the same
time.
topic, yeah. And so we were hoping that if we could talk about the dates of August 1st, 4th, or the 5th. We think that those would be the ones that would work. This also would be one where we believe that we could do this with all but one of you virtual.
I'm virtual all the first half of August. I'm supposed to be in a place where I have high-speed internet connection and can participate in a meeting. And it's not a public place, it's a private place, so.
So August 1st is a Friday. 4th is the Monday. The 5th is the Tuesday.
And I see this should be an abbreviated meeting with one topic.
Correct.
Correct. I'm available for any one of those days.
Okay, great.
Fifth is the best.
Would 11:30, since it's the standard board meeting time work,
On Friday the first.
Friday, 11:30 on Friday the 1st?
It works for me.
I think it does. I'm going to attend a wedding, so I'm not certain of all the activities, but I think it works.
We see that for this, have things before and after that make it hard to get.
Sure. Sorry.
Just for completeness, the 4th wouldn't be a great date for me, and the 5th should be just fine.
Okay.
We have to default to those.
You will check in. We also need to get a hold of Nikki and see her availability, but we'll have a tentative hold for Friday, August 1st at 11:30.
Next item on the agenda, we still have one annual meeting preparation. We took that off, sorry, I'm stiff.
Now it's the selection of trustees to review the payment voucher.
Is up next. Rashma, are you available to do this? And obviously, our next regular meeting is August 13th.
Second motion.
Yes, we're not gonna vote.
See a motion you're saying.
All right, thank you.